All right, guys. So I got Jason Anderson here. Jason and I were just talking. We've known each other. I started the business 11 years ago in Frisco. So we've known each other for a long time. You were one of the first guys there. Did you say you're at a ribbon cutting or something? I mean, you're there at the beginning,
I
right?
was. Yeah, I was tied in with the Frisco Chamber of Commerce and I lived right in Frisco Square. I bought one of the townhomes behind Town Hall. I was doing the Frisco Chamber Leadership Program at the time,
Mm,
I believe, when you guys did the ribbon cutting. So I was one of the
yeah.
first members out there. Yep.
Yeah. So Jason was involved in a real estate business he founded at a really perfect time, right when I started my business, '08.
Yep.
I got my SBA loan, as a lot of you guys know, 2 weeks before Lehman Brothers collapsed. So I bump into Jason. He's trying to sell real estate, and I'm trying to sell haircuts when nobody wants to pay for anything.
Sure.
Jason's now the president of VentureX, fastest growing co-working franchise in the world, and these guys have been adversely impacted. We have, obviously, but this isn't Jason's first run at adversity. And so I love chatting with people that have been there before, and can shed a little bit of light on people that maybe it's their first time, man. Let's start there, because you probably remember like the first time you failed at something. And we all have these egos as entrepreneurs, like we're the one providing jobs. We're supposed to, be the ones that stick it out, and we don't fail, like, as in our character. Some people failed for the first time flat on their face. Maybe they started in business 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, and they've never failed, and they had to lay off 40,000 people, 10,000 people.
Sure.
What advice do you have for people like that? That's just like their first time failing, trying to go back to when you were there.
Well, Ben, I appreciate that, and thanks for the intro. I think one of the things I tell people is there's usually certain precedents that set levels of bad things that can happen to you in life, right? And
Mm,
to kind of tell you why I feel like this is really maybe my fourth rodeo, I want to hit on, first kind of that spiritual journey. I joined the military as the youngest of 10. My father was born in 1938, had an elementary school education, never made it again out of high school. Same similar scenario with my mother. I haven't seen my real mom in 25 plus years, but at 17, to kind of get out of the environment I was in, I joined the Air Force in June of 2000. So my retirement date would be 3 months from now. Had I stayed in the military, it would be my 20-year enlistment, which was my plan.
mm,
But very similar to me getting my real estate license in 2007, I joined the military in June 2000. Got to my first duty station Easter weekend 2001 in England. I could drink legally at 18. It was all fun and games. Had a great time, spent weekends in Paris. And 5 months later, the planes hit the towers, right? So I was active duty on 9/11, and that changed the trajectory of me staying in the military for 20 years. I was forced at 18. Went from drinking on the weekends, hanging out in Paris, to being deployed 7 days after the planes hit the towers. So that was, kind of my first shock and awe moment, I like to tell people. And then I got out the military, no prospects, Abilene, Texas, moved to Dallas, got into real estate, started a small business, got my real estate license in 2007. And as you mentioned, whole thing crashed 1 year later. So
mm,
I joined the service 1 year before 9/11. Then I got into real estate 1 year before that happened.
mm,
But then there was really a precedent, and I don't want to get too down here, but my wife and I have been together now since I moved to Dallas in 2006. We struggled with infertility for 13 years. But then last year, Ben, part of the reason we moved here, my wife got pregnant for the first time. And 3 days before my son's due date, he passed away.
mm.
So last April 9th, so during this pandemic, April 9th would have been my son's first birthday. So not only were we living through this, but 3 days before his due date, it was an umbilical cord accident. And that really set a precedent. And that started the chain of events that brought us back here to Dallas. So we moved back to Dallas on Valentine's Day, bought a house here to be close to family because God willing, again, my wife is now 8.5 months pregnant again with our second child. And this pregnancy has went well. So we got to Dallas on Valentine's Day, and then 30 days after that, a global pandemic strikes, right? So luckily we had time. And in Florida, when I tell you we wanted to start over, we sold our house in Florida completely furnished. So we moved here with nothing. I stayed at a Residence Inn because we didn't even have a bed. So we had to start literally completely over here in Dallas. So when I met with you, I was still in and out of furniture shopping. And then having a global pandemic hit right in the middle of the move, also on the first anniversary of our son's birthday, kind of added to that. But I tell people that really established a basis, right? When there's times in your life where you feel like, hey, how could anything be worse than this? I think you have to really kind of turn to just faith and guidance. And over the last 10 years, I kind of tell people I feel like I prepared myself for a mental marathon, meaning I've read every self help book, I've been to the seminars. So I feel mentally I was prepared to kind of handle kind of all of these blows and look at the positive kind of aspects of all of the bad things that may come. And that's what I did, for the last 30, 45 days during a global pandemic, is be appreciative for the things that we have. Our co-working spaces, we're fortunate that we're considered to be a necessary business because we deliver mail. Even though we have lost occupancy, generally speaking, everybody knows and understands that things could be worse. And we're hopeful that on the other side of this, as you could see if you've been on Katy Trail, people do not want to be at home. So we're hopeful that we're going to have a year's worth of business in the last 5 to 6 months of the year when everything kind of starts getting back to normal, that people have been cooped up for so long. It's going to be like what happens in Chicago in the springtime. You have people kind of hibernating because they don't want to go outside in the bitter cold. And then all of a sudden, everybody's everywhere. And I'm already seeing that. And I think that's what's going to happen, Ben, is that the businesses that can survive are going to see a huge influx of everything from everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Man, what an incredible story. And I mean, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I just learned so much about you in just a couple of minutes that it makes sense to me why you have performed the way that you have in your career. That preparation piece is what I want to talk about, because we haven't talked a lot about that on the show. We've talked about, things being a choice, choosing a certain path, shifting your mindset. And I believe that to be true. And we've covered a lot of it. We haven't talked a lot about preparedness. And I know, coming from, my dad was in the Air Force, his dad was in the Air Force. I came from a military family, and I know the military is about being prepared. I mean, that's just what you have to do to go into battle or any situation. Business seems to be the same way. If you want to make it work and be sustainable, like, what are you guys doing right now to prepare some of your franchisees during this downtime? How are y'all preparing for what's next?
So the first thing we did is, like you said, is we looked at what is next, right? So we've already started in our community areas, in our private offices, splitting desks apart. One of the things we did a few years ago is we saw the opportunity, because the co-working is really a buzz term, right? Flexible office space has been around for 20, 30 years. So what we did is we focused on the flexible private office spaces versus the community area. So most of our offices are already primarily private offices, but we're looking at things now like touchless entry to the locations. We're removing all of the reusable cups that we put out that people had before. We're also doing a COVID-19 cleaning. So we reached out to Jani-King and ServPro, and we've struck a national deal for them to come in and disinfect all of our locations for all of our franchisees. But more foundationally, the first thing we did is try to help them weather the storm. So day one, my director of real estate got on the phone with every single franchisee and started making calls on their behalf to renegotiate lease terms. Because if you looked at the franchisees, while there's a lot of fluff things we can add and look at what's going to happen after COVID-19 and the pandemic, we had to focus on how do we help them right now. Their biggest expense by far was rent. Then it was followed up by payroll, and then it was followed up typically by the SBA loans and deferrals. So we started very early on focused on those three things. How do we help you with rent? was number one, how do we work something out with your landlord, get a 30-day deferral, a 60-day deferral, a 90-day referral, whatever we could work out. Then the second one is how do you assess, this is before the payment protection, the payroll protection plan came out, and there was no kind of plan on the horizon. It's like, what are we going to do with staff? How do you keep as many as possible? How long can you go without generating revenue? Because we planned for the worst. And then the third thing was the SBA loan deferrals, which came out pretty quickly that we assisted them with. And then the fourth thing we did, Ben, is we looked at what we made, which is the royalties. And, we worked out a plan with franchisees that needed it. So meaning we offered something to them. If they needed it, it was there. If they felt they didn't need it, because if they didn't need it, they didn't take it. We actually have some locations that have increased occupancy still over the last 30 days. So not everybody is in the same scenario, but we focused on those 4 foundational things to try to help them weather the storm. And then by March 16th, I believe, which was the first Monday after the pandemic, we started a daily email to all of the franchisees with a 1 email daily update, as well as then we launched weekly video kind of chats, and we've had 2 town hall Zoom meetings since then. So it was really just focused on the 4 key things we knew we could help control, which is kind of one of my rules for personal development is, if you can't control the controllables, then you'll never have any hope on the uncontrollable things. So we just focused on the things that we could control, on the positive aspects of how do we move forward, and then really help them just weather the last 45 days now at this point.
I love that, man. I see so many businesses right now, they stuck their head in the sand. They went dark on social media. They went dark on communication with their clients, with their vendors, and with their franchisees. And they went hunting. Like, I know a guy that just like owns a business. He goes, we just shut it down, laid off everybody. He goes, I'm going to go hunting for 3 months.
Wow.
And it's shocking, right? That's going on. I know that companies like yours that are over communicating, you don't need to send out a daily email, but you do it. You don't need to do the town halls, but you do it. Reaching out and negotiating on behalf of the landlords or on behalf of the franchisees with the landlords. You don't make any money on that as a franchisor, right? Specifically. So doing those things is going to create more loyalty with your clients directly or your franchisees. I love that. The focus is where it needs to be right now. And no question, it's going to create more loyalty for you guys. In my business, most of my competitors are doing nothing but maybe asking for you to purchase a gift card at a reduced price.
Sure.
And not a whole lot more than that. What are you encouraging your franchisees to do right now to try to stay connected with their tenants, be a resource? Anything going on there that you're suggesting or that your franchisees are telling you that they're doing where you go, wow, man, that's a great pivot?
Well, the first thing we did, right, is we do have Fortune 500 companies in some of our locations, and they're under a complete different scenario than, let's say, our mom and pop real estate agents, insurance agents. So in the same scenario where we focused on the 4 main things we knew our franchisees need, which was the rent, the payroll, and all those things we just covered, we told them to repurpose what we're doing and do that for their members as well. Meaning, be open and honest, right? If you get out ahead of it, and I think you hit it on the head, I think you're going to see the companies that really lose to this are the companies that just stuck their head in the sand, that didn't proactively do, say, or offer anything. So we had our locations openly do the same thing we did for them. Is who your members are, who the Toyotas and the big Fortune 500 companies are that probably don't need anything from you. But when you get the email from that small mom and pop business saying they need help, just ask, what can I do, right? Say, what can I do to help you during this time? Because that will then in turn build loyalty. And if our locations were getting some type of assistance, we ask them to pass that assistance along to their members. Because the last thing you want to have is to come out of this with 100 negative reviews because you have small business owners or people that feel like maybe you screwed them over during a tough time when they really needed your help. And the funny thing is, Ben, is when you proactively offer it, very few people take advantage of it. but it's when you don't offer it and people need it that you really get bashed. So I think the proactive aspect of them doing for their members what we did for them really helped a lot of them through it. And then we told them to maybe offer special incentives that, hey, look, if you're on a month-to-month plan right now, if you sign up or pay and continue to pay, if you have the space, we told them to upgrade them from a one-person to a two-person office for the next 90 days. If they're willing to sign a one-year lease or pay for the next 90 days, they'll give them the fourth month free. So we started coming up with just really unique sales pitches dependent upon which each location was at. We had some locations that were sold out, so they had nothing to offer. We had one location that their grand opening was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, and they have 80% vacancy, right? So I said, why not offer all your community members a private office for the next 30 days that they can come and work from and be completely social distance? So we had some general kind of terms we told them to do, but then we got really laser focused and specific to each location, each area, kind of how to help their members in the community. They got involved with community awareness campaigns and giving away food, offering space to first responders, to traveling nurses. So we really tried to ride the wave of what was needed in each general location.
Mm-hmm. People feel like they don't have any options right now. I wasn't given the option to continue operating my business or close my business. And I like what you guys are doing. And we did the same thing where we said, if you need to cancel your monthly membership, that's okay. If you'd like to keep it, it would help us out and we'll give you a $25 credit, right, when we do reopen.
Mm-hmm.
But here's some choices here. And I think people want choices right now because we just feel like we don't have them.
Sure. Yeah, I think you saw it with the insurance companies, right? I think, I know that was your background. I think State Farm or Allstate was the first to come out and just say, hey, look, we're going to give back some big number. And then I think you saw everybody following suit. And really right now, I can't even remember who did it. So I've been surprised by some of the companies that have stepped up and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. I think the biggest by far is Jack Dorsey from Twitter, who put up, don't quote me on this, a third of his entire net worth, over $1 billion. I think he's pledged as a single human being. When you look at the Change the Nation that just launched, and you had every celebrity in the world, they raised $130 million. But you have one guy like Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, that just donated, again, 0.25%, I believe, a quarter of his entire net worth, which is a big, outstanding, ridiculous number, right? So I think in these times, you're going to see people just make what, in all intents and terms, would be ridiculous generosity, right? Just things that are just so far out of the realm of belief that positively kind of impact and change the world.
Mm-hmm. I love the social pressure right now to be a social impact agent. There is, like, when Dorsey donates $1 billion, it puts pressure on the other billionaires, right?
It does, yeah.
to do good. So I'm all about, usually social pressure is not, maybe not a good thing, peer pressure, but there's a lot of good peer pressure going on around supporting the community and those people in need. And so I feel like we're going to come out of this closer together, more unified, because we are all going through it together. And so, as brands and as people, we've got to, someone's got to set the standard as a leader, right? If we're truly a leader, it's up to us to take some obligation, some responsibility to set a standard. What are you saying? Are you seeing your friends do anything just outside of Venture X in their businesses that could be helpful for some of our viewers and listeners that have a pizza shop, or, any number of things, but any anecdotes there that you're seeing outside of the co-working space?
So yeah, I do have a group of friends here that run some of the local dentist practices. I think I told you about them. They own nightclubs and restaurants, right? So they are, they've done very well, but they're completely shut down. But they've, really turned to some unique marketing tactics, right? So at their nightclubs, some of them, what they did is for a while, they were doing delivery at home, like bottle service, right? So if kind of the nightclub crowd, where they come with the sparklers and all these things. So when it first happened, they started launching like this at-home bottle service where you still got, the party promoter and the girl came to the house and they had sparklers right outside your house and they can kind of leave things behind. And they took this time to really just, some of them are getting ready to start the process of franchising, and they're reinventing the menu. They're doing some kind of long needed repairs. And I think it really depends on where they were at in the process and in life to how well they can weather the storm. On the not so positive side of that, you have some people that are, again, just really hurting and kind of waiting on these government plans, and they've submitted to every bank in the city of Dallas, and they're kind of on this last lifeline, and asking for help. I've received emails from restaurants that I've went to for 15 years with GoFundMe pages that we've been trying to support. So I think it's going to be a collective effort. The sad side of that is, not everybody is going to make it through the storm. But I think, Ben, like everybody realizes, they can kind of turn, tragedy into triumph. I think the businesses that don't make it, hopefully will come back and have a second chance. I think you'll see landlords come back and renegotiate deals. I think you're going to see employees come back and willing to take things that they wouldn't have done before. So I think even some of the businesses that may fail in the short term, I think you're going to see some of those come back and get a second chance in the next 60, 90 to 120 days.
Yeah, I believe that to be true. I believe that. I like to end as many of my shows as possible just talking about something that's important to me. It's foundational for me and my success, and that is gratitude. Waking up every day, thanking God. For me, it's thanking God that I've been given another day every single morning, and focusing on the things that matter most and kind of fill me up. For you right now, is anything new popped up that you're grateful for, or maybe a reminder of something that you weren't thinking about constantly that maybe you overlooked that you're grateful for in your life?
Well, yeah, like I said, April 9th would have been, a pivotal date, because that would have been the 1 year birthday of my son. And to have my wife pregnant again at that same time and also be going through a pandemic, started that day pretty overwhelming. But really, just on a daily basis, it's gratitude that the business is still here. Like you said, I'm still here. We've made it back to Dallas, which, had we not moved, if we would have put that move off 30 days, which very well could have happened, we wouldn't still be here. And my wife would be pregnant. We would be alone in a different state without her family. So grateful that happened, that God put us here 30 days before this happened, gave us a chance to get furniture into the house, that we still have a business and job to come into. And I look at one small thing, right, is when this first happened, I was used to the tornadoes in Florida. So I knew people were going to panic and things were going to go crazy, because every time there's a storm in Florida, runs out of gas, runs out of water. So at the first sign, I went to the store and stocked up on things. And I put this into perspective. I was fortunate enough, Ben, to be able to go to Home Depot and buy a small second refrigerator, right? So when you look at, there's some people in the world that are starving, I really look at that small little stupid $120 refrigerator I bought as a blessing to how things could be bad, that I was able to go to the store and buy enough to not just have food in one refrigerator, but a second, which kind of prompted me that every time I think about it, to go ahead and donate, a couple dollars to the North Texas Food Bank, while I'm at Whole Foods or picking up my curbside, is saying, okay, how can I just give back a little bit to people that aren't fortunate enough to be putting, milk and eggs and things into a small second refrigerator. So it was really April 9th, that day, kind of set the tone that we've made it through a year. And then now having weekly doctor visits of, positive results from my wife's current pregnancy that keep things going. And we're hoping the next 30 days, two things happen, right? That we break out of the pandemic and we have our first child. So, those are two big hopeful things that we're grateful for every day, and just looking forward to the next 30, 45 days.
Man, I'm so impressed with what you've done in business, but I just want to acknowledge you for your strength and your just fierceness, man, and adversity. And I don't know what it's like to lose a child, but I got this close, when my son had his 12-hour open heart surgery. 5 days after he was born and going through multiple open heart surgeries. It's the most pain that you can ever feel as a human. And for you to be running your business, supporting your family, supporting the community, supporting all these other business owners, just speaks to the power of a mindset. You know, if you choose it, you work on it. You can't just choose it. You got to be prepared. You got to invest in yourself. You and I can probably talk for hours about what you're reading right now and how you're putting content into yourself to get you to that state. But just want to acknowledge you for that, you know, I believe that your story will inspire other people who felt like they were stuck, felt like there's no way out. It'll inspire them to start to take some action and get prepared and make that investment. I'm certain in my mind that everything is going to be great over the next 30 days for you and your family, and you have a beautiful baby and a beautiful business coming out of this. That's my my hope and prayer for you guys.
Thank you. And right now I'm rereading David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. I don't know if you've ever followed
so good.
David. You know, so it's that's kind of my go-to. It even fired me up to get up and go for a run this morning after looking at his Instagram channel. But then, you know, I have my Calm app. I do my morning yoga and meditation. My gym isn't open anymore. I was just getting settled back into Equinox here, and you know, the Uptown area. I got the whole. I was all back in Park City's Uptown within 30 days, just all back into my regular routine. So just trying to keep that normalcy, you know, and really, like I said, just controlling the controllables. I get up at the same time. I get fully dressed every day like I'm going into the office, the jacket, the suit. Like I haven't spent a day in sweatpants since this whole thing happened. Even if I have no Zoom meetings, I sit here at home in my desk, fully dressed like I'm going into the office. I went to the stores fully dressed, keep up the weekend projects that I had going, and just try to make the normal out of the unnormal times and circumstances.
Yeah, that's inspiring, man. And for those of you that are wondering, that's Jason's background there is of the VentureX Dallas Uptown location. So for those of you Dallas people, when you get back open again or get out of your houses, go check out the office right across the street from our Uptown location, literally across the street.
It is.
So go check them out over there. All right, my friend, I'm going to have you back on when we get our new show. And I can't wait to see you again in person once we get through all this.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks, Ben.
All right, brother. See ya.
Bye.